Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Humbert here, and we're going to be finishing up Unit 2 Notes 4. So we're going to be doing the second half of those notes. So here's some more. It's kind of got an added step to it because we're going to be doing a little bit more with solving equations today. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that both of your equations are in standard form. Now remember that standard form is ax plus by is equal to c, and that c represents the constant, just a number, and that needs to be over on the other side. Then you're going to multiply one or both of the equations by a number so that one of the variables has opposite coefficients. Then you're going to add the two equations together. This picks up to what you did on the previous part of this. And then you're going to solve for the remaining variable and substitute that value into one of the equations and solve for the other variable. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what this is going to look like. So taking a look at number one, this is similar to what we did on the first part. We have x's that have the same number out in front. We just need to get them to have opposite signs. So since they both have a 1 out front, I'm going to take and I'm going to multiply the bottom one by a -1. So I have x plus 2y is equal to 10. And now I'm going to take and I'm going to multiply that second equation by -1. So I have negative x minus y. So negative x minus y, or plus a negative y, is equal to a -6. And then I'm going to go ahead and add down the columns. X minus x is going to cancel out. 2y minus y is going to equal y. 10 minus 6 is going to give me 4. So here I get that y is equal to 4. So I need to take that y and I'm going to plug it in for either y up here. I'm going to plug it into the second equation. So I'm going to take the y out and put 4 in instead, and that's going to be equal to 6. So this is really the same as x plus 4 is equal to 6. So to solve for x, all I have to do is subtract 4 from both sides, and I end up getting that x is equal to 2. So now I'm going to write this out as a coordinate point, 2, 4. So that's my final answer for number 1. Taking a look at number 2. So for number 2, I noticed that none of these have the same number. So what I like to do is I somehow need to get one of my letters to have the same number. So what I always do is I look for ones, anybody with a 1. So I see that y has a 1. So now I'm asking myself, what do I need to multiply 1 by to get to the opposite of 2? Well, the opposite of 2 is a -2. So what do I need to multiply 1 by to get to a -2? And the answer is a -2. So I'm going to be multiplying that second equation by a -2. So the first equation is 4x plus 2y is equal to 8. Now I'm going to take that second equation and multiply everything in it by a -2. -2 times 3 is -6x. -2 times 1 is -2y. And then 8 times -2 is going to give me a -16. So now we can go ahead and add down the columns because I know my y's are going to cancel. 4x minus 6x is a -2x. 8 minus 16 is a -8. So now I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by a -2. Here I'm dividing two negatives, so that's going to become a positive. And 8 divided by 2 is going to give me 4. So that's for my x. So then I need to plug my x back in to get my y. So I can pick any of these 4 equations. It actually doesn't matter. So I'm going to use the second equation from the original version. So I'm going to take x out completely and put y in instead, or 4 in instead. And then I'm going to leave the rest of the equations as is. So I have 3 times 4 plus y is equal to 8. Well, that's going to become 12 plus y is equal to 8. So now to solve for y, all I have to do is subtract 12 from both sides. So I end up getting that y is equal to a -4. So x is equal to a +4, y is equal to a -4. So I have the point 4, -4 for number 2. Now let's take a look at number 3. So I want to figure out how I can multiply these to make them work. So here's what I noticed. I noticed that y's, I already have the opposite signs. I could do it that way, but it actually would be easier. Take a look at this. So I'm going to ask myself, what can I multiply 2x by to get to 10x? So what do I need to multiply 2 by to get to 10? Well, I need to multiply it by 5. Now I notice that this is a positive 10 and I need this to be a negative 10. So I'm going to multiply that top equation by a negative 5. So I'm multiplying this guy right here by a negative 5. And when I multiply the entire equation. So negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. Negative 5 times 3y is plus 15y. And negative 5 times 11 is negative 55. And then here I'm going to have 10x plus 10y is equal to 30. Okay, so then what I am going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to add some of these together here. So these guys right here are going to cancel out, and I'm sorry, this should be a negative 15y, or positive, no, goodness, that should be positive, I was right. Okay, so then what we're going to do here is I'm going to multiply or add 15 plus 10y, and that's going to give me 25y. And then I'm taking and I'm going to do negative 55 plus 30, and that's going to give me a negative 25. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 25 to get that y is equal to a negative 1. So now I can plug that in for whatever y I want. I'm going to plug it into the original first equation. So I have 2x minus 3 times negative 1 is equal to 11. Negative 3 times negative 1 has become a positive 3, and that's equal to 11. So then we're going to subtract 3 from both sides, and I get 2x is equal to 8. Divide both sides by 2, and I get that x is equal to 4. So now I need to write my solution out as a point. First my x, and then my y. Okay, so let's take a look at number 4. So for number 4, I want to figure out how I can do this. Well, first of all, the easiest way to multiply to me seems to look at the y's. And it actually doesn't matter which one you pick to multiply. It's whatever is easiest for you. So I'm asking myself, what do I need to multiply 4 by to get to the opposite of negative 12? Well, the opposite of negative 12 is a positive 12. So what do I need to multiply negative 4 by to get a positive 12? Well, I'm going to have to multiply it by a negative number to get it positive. And to multiply from 4 to 12, I'm going to have to multiply by a negative 3. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply that top equation by a negative 3. So I get negative 15x plus 12y is equal to 30. And then I get 12x minus 12y is equal to 96. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve this out on this one. Okay, so negative 15 plus 12 is going to give me negative 3x. And then 30, this is going to be a negative 90. I forgot to distribute it all the way through, so please make sure you're multiplying all the way over. See, even I forget. Negative 90 plus 96 is going to give you 6. So then you're going to divide both sides by a negative 3, and you end up getting that x is equal to a negative 2. And we can plug that into any of them. I'm going to plug it into the original top. So I take x out and I put negative 2 in instead. Minus 4y is equal to 30. So then I get negative 10 minus 4y is equal to 30. Subtract 10 from both sides. And I end up, or add 10 to both sides since that's a negative 10, and I end up getting 40. Divide both sides by a negative 4, and I end up getting that y is equal to negative 10. So now I'm going to write that as a coordinate point. Negative 2, negative 10, and that is your final answer for number 4. So what I would like you guys to do is, well, let's get this one set up. Let's get this one started for number 5. So for number 5, I see that n already has opposite signs. So since it already has opposite signs, I want to figure out what I can multiply 3 and 5 by to get the same number. Well, it turns out we actually have to multiply them by each other. So I'm going to multiply this top equation by 3 and this bottom equation by 5. So then I'm going to end up getting 30m plus 15n is equal to 15. And I don't have to worry about opposite signs because that's why I picked n in the first place, is because it already has opposite signs. So now I can go ahead and I can add down the column. Okay, so then we're going to get 45m is equal to 87. So 87 divided by 45 is going to give us a decimal. Okay, so we're just going to estimate it. 1.93 we'll put for our estimate. So now I'm going to plug that in for m. It's okay if you get decimals. You probably won't on any assignments or on a homework, but we're just doing this one for practice. So I'm going to plug in 1.93 for m into the first equation just because I feel like it. So when I multiply that by 10, I get 19.3 plus 5n is equal to 5. So then we're going to take 5 minus 19.3. And I end up getting 5n is equal to negative 14.3. So then we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 5, and we get negative 2.86 for our n. Now we have m and n, so a lot of students are like, well, how do I write that in a coordinate point? You actually really can't. But I say if you want to write it in a coordinate point, just put it in alphabetical order, m, then n. Okay, so I want you guys to go ahead and try this on your own. The hint I will give you would be to multiply this one by 3 and multiply this one by 6. If you get stuck, please let me know and we can work on it together. So let's take a look at this number 7. It says Dante spent $11.25 on 3 new and 4 old comic books. So I'm going to let X represent new and Y represent old. Samantha spent $15.75 on 10 old, which remember is Y, and 3 new, which is X. So X really is going to be the price of new, and Y is going to be the price of old. It doesn't matter which variable you sign where, but it is important that you let me know. So Dante spent $11.25. Apparently I thought it was the time. And so so he bought 3 new at price X and 4 old at price Y. Samantha spent $15.75 and she spent 3 new at price X and 10 Y at or 10 old at price Y. Notice that it flipped it around the second one to try and trip you up. So this one's a pretty straightforward elimination problem. All we have to do is make the bottom one negative. So we have 11.25, or I'm sorry, change the sign. So we have 3x plus 4y, then we get negative 15.75 is equal to negative 3x minus 4y. So now we're going to go ahead and add down the columns. So when we do that, we get negative 4.5 here. These cancel out, and this should be 10y. Come on, Humbert. And that's going to be negative 6y. Divide both sides by 6, or negative 6, and we end up getting that y is 75 cents. And I want to label it old because that does represent the old comic book. So now we need to plug that in for our y. So I'm just going to plug it into this equation right here instead of having the y. So I have 3x plus 4 times 0.75 is equal to 11.25. Well, 4 times 0.75 is going to give me 3, and that's equal to 11.25. Subtract 3 from both sides, and we get that 3x is equal to 8.25. Last thing I want to do is to divide 3 from both sides, and I get that x is equal to 275, and now that represents the new comic books. So we have new and we have old. Next, let's take a look at number 8. Amy is walking a straight path that can be represented by the equation negative 2x plus y is equal to 3. At the same time, Kendra's walking a straight path that can be represented by the equation 3y is equal to 6x plus 6. So we want to figure out at what point they're going to be the same, which means we need to solve for x and y. So remember at the beginning of this video, we talked about how everything needs to be in standard form, which means for this equation, I need to bring the 6x over to the other side. So I have negative 6x minus 3y is going to be equal to 6. So I'm going to line that up here. Negative 6y minus 3y is equal to 6. So now what I want to do is figure out, here I have a 1. So we have a negative 3. What's the opposite of negative 3? Well, that's going to be positive 3. So what do I need to multiply 1 by to get a positive 3? And that's going to be 3. So here I end up getting negative 6x. Okay, or is this? This is a positive 3y. I'm sorry. So negative 6x. So this should be a negative 3. So that'll become positive 6x minus 3y is equal to negative 9. And here we get negative 6x plus 3y is equal to 6. So now we're ready to add down the columns. And when we do that, you'll notice that both columns cancel out. So then this is going to end up being 0. And I get that 0 is equal to negative 3. Well, that's never true. So that means there's no solution. So what does that mean in terms of the problem? Well, that means that Amy and Kendra will never cross each other. Very, very sad for them. So let's take a look at number 9. A shipment of TVs weighing 30 pounds each, the others weighing 50 pounds each. So I'm going to let X represent the 30-pound TVs, and I'm going to let Y represent the 50-pound TVs. So together they have a weight of 880 pounds. So for every X TV that we have, it's 30 pounds. For every Y 50-pound TV we have, it's 50 pounds. And that needs to add up to 880 pounds. There's 20 TVs together, so the number of 30-pound and the number of 50-pound needs to add to 20. So I've got this all set up for you. I would like you guys to go ahead and finish solving it, and then if you have any questions, please bring them up to me. Thanks for listening.